The year is 1975. The Vietnam War has just ended, disco is popular, and the first summer blockbuster, Jaws, is released. Meanwhile, at 140 16th Avenue, a new school opens its doors for the first time. This school, of course, is Indianola Informal, and over the next 45 years, it'll go on to change the lives of thousands.
Red and yellow and pink and green, purple and orange and blue. I can sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow too. Listen with your eyes, listen with your eyes, sing everything you see. You can sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow, sing along with me. Red and yellow and pink and green, purple and orange and blue. I can sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow too.
Indianola originated as a junior high school in 1909 and was the first school of this type in the United States. It would become an elementary school a few decades later, and this would continue on until the 1970s, when Indianola Informal was first established. But first, let's go back a little further. To fully understand Indianola, it is important to first understand what informal education is. In the late 1960s, Martha King, an OSU professor, traveled to Britain to learn about British primary education, also known as progressive education or informal education. Unlike the rigid structure of traditional education, informal education was based on a completely different approach. It drew inspiration from early 20th century psychologists such as John Dewey, Jean Piaget, and Lev Vygotsky, as well as the constructivist theory of education. Constructivism states that each person constructs knowledge based on prior knowledge and experiences, and therefore effective education must be individualized. Indianola would come to exemplify this idea. Informal education in Ohio started right here on the campus of Ohio State University. In the 1970s, Martha King started education programs for informal classrooms, abbreviated as EPIC. King defined informal education through 7 points. Summarizing these points, King's view of informal education was that it centered learning around the child and adapted to fit the needs of each individual. The best way for teachers to engage with their classrooms was through experience and collaboration, rather than standardization.
They began having teachers learn the philosophy through learning exactly as we want kids to learn. And through them learning themselves about the material of becoming a teacher, they understood how anyone learns anything, and they began to work with that.
This view was passed on to the many teachers involved in EPIC, many of whom would become teachers at Indianola. The idea for Indianola began at a Columbus School Board meeting in the spring of 1975, when Ronald Beaver, a parent, proposed to the board that a fully informal elementary school be designated. 3 Columbus schools with informal programs existed at this time, but none of them were solely an informal school. My preference for this approach is based upon an age-old adage in which I firmly believe: experience is the best teacher. That proposition, coupled to individualized personal attention, is, as I understand it, the foundation upon which the informal approach is built. Such an approach can instill confidence in a child regarding his ability to learn, encourage self-motivation, and, perhaps most importantly, promote a strong self-worth concept. 6 months later, Beaver's proposal had become a reality. Indianola Informal was created as a K-6 school for the 1975-1976 school year. No person had a greater impact on the success of Indianola than the school's first principal, Patricia Caston. Known to her students and faculty as just Pat, she was fierce, humorous, and caring. Her unique approach to education fit perfectly with Indianola. Prior to 1975, Pat Caston served as principal of Moeller Elementary, one of the other informal Columbus schools. She, along with several other faculty members, left the school to start Indianola. As principal, Pat Caston was instrumental in constructing the school's image. She helped make the rainbow a symbol of Indianola, creating badges that read, "Friends are like rainbows at Indianola Informal." There was also the Rainbow Song. Originally written in the 1950s, "I Can Sing a Rainbow" was adopted as the school song of Indianola and is still used to this day. The rainbow symbolism is perhaps one of the longest lasting impacts of Pat Caston. Pat adored the children, and they all loved her. She always stood up when she felt that their ability to learn was being affected.
They told her she had to take all that stuff off the walls because it was a fire hazard. And she said, "I can't do that because that work is very important to all the children here. And it has to stay." "Well, it can't stay, and we'll have to call the police." And she said, "Bring them on." She put out her hands. She says, "They can cuff me, take me in." But she said, the work of the children is going to stay on the walls. She said, "It'll make a wonderful article for the Dispatch." And at that, they decided to just let her go.
Indianola was such a success that people from all around Ohio, a Detroit school administrator, and even an educator from Japan communicated with Pat to learn about the school. Learning at Indianola was often unusual but effective, and still is to this day. Teachers made use of webs to visualize new units or concepts. This allowed children to center their own learning around their interests. Learning itself was hands-on, with teachers using whatever methods necessary to let the children explore and discover.
I know we all played the recorder at one point and put on a little recorder concert. We didn't, we may have had some choirs, but there was no big show or no big event. But it seemed like every day there were events going on. We staged our own shows. We put on plays within our class a lot.
Outsiders saw this as ineffective and goofing off. However, the results were indisputable. When testing was instated, the Indianola children outscored the district by a significant margin. The informal education program was paying off, both by the standards of parents and now by the district and state standards as well. In 1979, a sculpture contest was held at Indianola. The students had the opportunity to create a design for an environmental sculpture that was to be built in front of the school. When all of the designs were submitted, students voted on their favorite. The winner was constructed by the school's own art teacher, with help from students. The sculpture was named The Landing of the Butterfly and is still one of many art installations at Indianola. It stands to this day. Indianola's building was well catered to its students. The ceilings were high and the hallways were wide, great for laying down on and painting. The classrooms had reading lofts and furniture that one doesn't typically see in a classroom. Of course, there were some limitations, such as the small dance room. Nevertheless, Indianola faculty and students alike loved their building. They painted on it, decorated it, and made it their home. The 1970s were full of joy and excitement. Indianola was a success, children were effectively learning through informal education, and the teachers and faculty took pride in their work. Unfortunately, in 1979, Pat Caston retired, and Indianola lost her strong and kind leadership. It soon fell into a miniature dark age. The 1980s were a period of strife for Indianola. Between external challenges and an unpopular principal, the school struggled to keep its identity. Pat Caston's retirement left a power vacuum that Indianola was not able to escape for several years.
And a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.
These external challenges were mirrored by the transitions from principal to principal. The principals that followed Pat Caston were not staunch advocates for informal education, and this led to many problems. Many of the parents felt like they were not being listened to. This created tension between the administration and parents, which wasn't always resolved. Additionally, the administration often took credit for accomplishments by other staff or parents. The administration over these years had a fundamental misunderstanding of informal education.
The principal was still there, and so he met us as we were going up to the top floor. And he was so proud of the building. And he said, you know, it was so messy when I got here, and he said, we really worked hard at cleaning up this building.
Rather than embracing the messiness and creativity of children, the new principals tried to hide it. This, coupled with pressure from higher officials, permanently impacted Indianola. Despite the best efforts of others, the school struggled to live up to Pat Caston's original vision. Also in the 1980s, the district attempted to move Indianola from its 16th Avenue location to the Valley Forge building. This was very unpopular among parents and staff, and they made their voices heard. Not for the first time, and certainly not for the last. Eventually, the district relented and Indianola kept its 16th Avenue location. One positive in the 1980s was the collaboration between OSU and Indianola. From Halloween festivities with the fraternities and sororities, to Earth Day celebrations on the Oval, to countless student teachers and field trips, Indianola took full advantage of its proximity to the university. Indianola has been very environmentally conscious from the 1970s until today. This can be seen in the 1980s when students attended countless events with OSU relating to the earth and how to conserve it. Indianola had its own greenhouse where students could tend to and learn about the natural world. The 1980s also saw the installation of the rainbow window, which was designed by the students. The original idea for the window was, unsurprisingly, from Pat Caston. In the dedication for the window, one parent said, "A school such as this becomes so through careful nurturing by a dedicated principal, teachers, and parents working together. Nor could it long continue without this. The form of its classrooms might still exist, but the substance, the heart of it, would be gone." In the 1990s, Indianola regained some of the spirit it had lost in the previous decade. This can partly be attributed to the Arts Impact program. While arts integration had been a part of the Indianola curriculum since the beginning, the arts teaching team was shared between buildings. Indianola shared 4 arts teachers: a drama teacher, an art teacher, a music teacher, and a dance teacher. 1992 brought an obstacle for the school in the form of proposed staff cuts. The district wanted to remove the Arts Impact program from Indianola and several other alternative schools, much to the dismay of Indianola's faculty and parents. In the same fashion as the Valley Forge situation 11 years before, the district faced massive pushback from Indianola. Parents sent letters and spoke at board meetings, making sure that the importance of the arts program was known. The district soon conceded, and the Arts Impact program was kept. A few years later, Indianola experienced another success when it was granted a full-time Arts Impact team. As a concession, the drama teacher had to be cut from this team. In collaboration with strong teachers and administrators, Indianola returned to some of its original ideals. Artist residencies are a long-standing Indianola tradition since the early years. During the 90s, Indianola had many artists in residence. In fact, there is nearly a visit every year, if not more. Many artists for children's books worked with the children at Indianola, and the children honored the artist with a custom-designed window blind.
The tradition that the boys and girls of the school create a window shade to be put in the library for each of the authors that comes, and if you would sign this, this will hang in our library for a while. This was created and painted by the children here at Indianola, and do we have a pen?
Wonderful.
These blinds, which hung in the original school building, have been preserved to this day. The idea of sharings also came from the 1990s. Sharings were an opportunity for students to share their work on a unit of study. Sometimes, entire grades would work together to put on lavish productions that integrated all 4 parts of the arts, taught at Indianola. Children were responsible for performing and designing these productions.
The idea of the sharing was that it really came out of the learning. So for me, as dance, it was very important. Dance is a performing art. So even as we're looking at something, then people are creating something. So for kids really to get the full picture of taking an idea, developing it, and they needed to perform too.
Sharings would become less frequent and more classroom-based, but they have still lived on to this day. This period was also the beginning of one of the most renowned Indianola traditions, the drum out. Originally, there were several music classes, including a drumming class. The drum out became the end-of-year celebration to commemorate the graduating 5th graders. The 5th graders were drummed out by the 4th graders in a sort of rite of passage. This tradition has consistently been a part of Indianola since then, with a slight change after the middle school was added. Drums are now played by 6th and 7th graders to commemorate the 8th graders moving on to high school. The sword dance started soon after, in the early 2000s. A dance group came to Indianola and presented this dance to the children.
In the clogging group, when they were there, she taught the sword dance. That's where they came from. She brought all the special long swords. We went through the training, and the kids, it was very special. So after she left, I said, this would be a great tradition to have for our 5th graders when they graduate.
The dance was taught to the 5th graders and has been performed at the end of the year by the 5th graders ever since. The 1990s saw great changes at Indianola, and some of these changes allowed Indianola to recapture the spirit of its earlier self.
I put in a lot of time with the teachers at Indianola because they're the expert.
A major change came to Indianola in the mid-2000s, the addition of the middle school. Parents had wanted an extension of Indianola past the elementary level, and this came to fruition in 2006. The school building would not be able to sustain the new amount of students, so after 30 years on 16th Avenue, Indianola moved to the former Crestview Middle School building on Weber Road. The last decade has been both positive and negative for Indianola. Unfortunately, the new building space and layout has limited interaction between classes and grades, as well as where learning can occur. However, as Martha King said, informal learning is not dependent on the space where learning occurs, but instead the way learning is carried out. Further contributing to limitations on informal education are the increasing restrictions placed on schools by the government. The focus on standardized testing has greatly challenged Indianola's freedom that allowed it to flourish so much back in the 1970s. A final difficulty is the lack of new educators trained in informal education. Many of the original teachers at Indianola went through EPIC at OSU, but that is no longer the case because the program was shut down. Despite these hardships, Indianola has continued to persevere. The middle school has opened up a wide array of new opportunities for Indianola. Most of the students who attend middle school at Indianola also attended elementary school, meaning that they can engage with their peers using the foundation of informal education. The combination of middle school with elementary school also presents opportunities for interaction between older and younger students, such as reading buddies. The middle school has also brought a variety of extracurriculars with it, especially sports and theater, as well as school dances. The Indianola mascot, the Knight, was originally chosen because of the school's strong chess team in the 1990s. Indianola's contemporary period has many notable events and traditions. First is the designation of Indianola as a green spot school due to its continued environmental consciousness. This involved a process of service and education towards helping the environment. Also worth mentioning is Indianola's community garden, planted with the help of students. It provides ongoing hands-on learning opportunities, much like the greenhouse at the old Indianola building. The Indianola Carnival is another modern Indianola tradition, hosted as a PTO fundraiser. The carnival allows Indianola students to connect with each other, gives alumni a chance to revisit old friends and memories, and fosters interaction between the school and local community. One final tradition is Frederick's Bookstore. Started by parents in the 1970s, Frederick's was based on the mouse Frederick in Leo Leone's book. Children could exchange an old book for a new one, pay a small fee for a book, or pay with a wooden nickel. This encouraged literacy among the children. While Frederick's is not quite the same today, it continues to exist at Indianola. In 2019, Indianola unveiled a new mural as part of its Roots and Wings project, relating to the school's history. The mural was designed and painted by students with the help of Queen Brooks and April Tsunami, two artists in residence. It symbolizes Indianola's past, present, and the colorful spirit of informal education.
It feels like home. The fact that peaceful is one of the characteristics that we're promoting in students. And being helpful is a characteristic that we're promoting in students. Those things that just feel really good for my soul.
Indianola has significantly impacted the lives of many, including myself. From the very first September days in 1975 to now, in spring of 2021, Indianola has undergone vast changes on the outside. But at its heart, the school continues to instill a passion for learning in all its students. Hi, so if you don't know, my name is Andrew Staley. I was a student at Indianola from kindergarten to 8th grade. And this video is part of my Eagle project, which is essentially documenting the history of Indianola. I'm hoping that maybe some of the things I talked about in this video that may have been forgotten about Indianola can be brought back. I just want to give a huge shout out to some of the people who have been instrumental in helping me with this project. Brandy Koth for really helping me with everything in this project. She's really encouraged me and made sure that I got the project done, especially in some of the challenges I faced with COVID. Ruth List, I interviewed a lot of people, so shout out to all of them, but especially Ruth List. We had a great interview and I learned a ton about the 70s at Indianola when it first got started. Also Tracy McCarthy, she was a huge help in getting me some of the context of Indianola, why it was important, as well as sending me a bunch of photos and videos from Indianola. Also, my parents, they've helped me a lot with this project, scanning some of the different photos in historical documents I had, helping me just in all parts of the process. And also, shout out to April, the school librarian at Indianola. She also helped me with the documents, getting them out and scanning them as well. There's a bunch of other people who have helped me as well, including all the people I interviewed, like I mentioned, and anyone who sent me photos or videos or any sort of documents. Those have been a great help as well. So thank you, all of you.